I said we'll be back right after this. I hope we played the commercial. I begin to wonder. I thought I was back home there for a while. The person on my left, your right now, is no stranger to all of us. It's the Honorable Senator Mary Fonseca, the Majority Whip of the Massachusetts Senate, a woman who has done quite a bit, not only for herself and her family, but her community and all of us. Senator Fonseca was first elected to public office in 1944 as a member of the school board in Fall River. She was in her 7th year on the school committee when she was elected in 1952 to the state Senate. She's always served on the Legislative Committee on Education and served as its chairman for 14 years before moving up to a position of more leadership on the Senate President's staff. Senator Mary Fonseca was the first woman named Majority Whip in 1973. Very pleased to have you here this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Donna. I'm happy to be here.
Having served in the Senate for 25 years and beginning your career at a time when few women were elected to any political position, could you comment on some of the troubles that you've run into? We all know about the good times, but some of the bad times maybe that you can help somebody out with?
Well, I think that actually where elective office is concerned, we have to depend on both men and women to be elected, and there are a substantial number of women holding public office. In terms of discrimination, there are a great many areas of discrimination because I think a great many of the male senators and male legislators sometimes feel that simply because you're a woman, your point of view is contrary to theirs, and on that basis there may be a little male chauvinism.
And that's something you've run into many times, I'm sure.
Yes, I have.
I'm sure. What about the conflict of a home and a job like you have?
Well, I was very fortunate when I first ran for public office. We lived in an apartment house, and my mother lived downstairs and I lived upstairs. I have a son and a daughter. They attended school. I worked as a secretary before being elected to the Senate. So I was able to work, hold public office with the approval of my husband and my family. And I was able to do it very well because as a member of the school board, our meetings were evening meetings. And after serving for 2 terms on the local school committee, then I ran for the Massachusetts Senate.
Could you have done it if your husband wasn't supportive at that time in your life?
I would not have run for public office. I don't think any married woman is going to be completely happy. Politics is a life that involves both a husband and a wife, and I think it's important that they both like what you're doing. And my husband was very, very interested in politics. He supported my entrance into politics wholeheartedly, and as a matter of fact, he was the one that circulated my papers, secured my campaign workers, and he was the first one out in the fields asking for people to elect his wife to the various offices that I have held.
Even though you told me earlier, he always said he wouldn't do it again, right?
Every year he'd say, I'm not going to let you run anymore, but he'd circulate the papers, he'd see to it that the stickers were distributed, he'd help in setting up the meetings, he'd get the people to help work, and he'd round up the necessary support and wrote my campaign articles for me.
You know, right now everybody tends to think of it, or a lot of people, as a person's world, not a woman's world or a man's world or whatever, but you were breaking into the Senate and the legislative business at a time when it was strictly a man's world, more so than it is now.
Yes, well, as a matter of actual fact, when I was elected to the school committee, I think that there was a strong feeling that a woman on the school board was important, or on a school committee. They felt that with the educating of our children that it was important to have a men and women. And as a matter of actual fact, my campaign philosophy has always been that government is no different than your home and your business. In order to have a good family and good life, you have to have a good man and a good woman at the head of it. And I think that's true in business as it is in government. And it's important that both men and women work together to establish good government for all of our people.
Last time we were together, you told me the story about hiring a secretary, and I think it shows some of the problems that you ran up against. Could you briefly go over that for me?
Yes, I think that there is still discrimination in a great many areas, and I think that in a great many areas there are positions that are classified, and quite often you find a position is classified one way if it's for a man, and there's a different classification or a different title for a woman. And I know that as a female senator, My responsibilities were just like the male senators, but I had a secretary. Every other male senator's assistant was a male, and their salary was $3,000 a year higher than my secretary at that time. And when I insisted that my secretary receive the same salary as the administrative assistants that the male senators had, I was informed by the leadership at that time, not the present leadership, that I had a secretary, not an administrative assistant. They refused to change her job title, and as a result, she earned $3,000 less simply because she was a woman. When Kevin Harrington became president of the Senate, the first thing that he did was name my secretary an administrative assistant and give her the proper salary.
In your travels, you run against a lot. People approach you because they want something done. You must run into a lot of discrimination, equal pay for equal work. We've mentioned before equal rights with the Equal Rights Amendment now. What are some of the major problems of women in business right now?
Well, I think that the major problems of women in business are what I have stated in terms of the job classifications. I think that with a great many of us, a great many women don't push themselves now. In the insurance industry, we heard the other panelists say that within her company there were no problems, and I was very pleased to hear the statistics that she had. But I think there are a great many problems in other areas. Now, it is true that a great many women do not apply for a great many positions, feeling that because they are female, they would be discriminated against. It's taken a great many years. It's slow coming, and I'm hopeful that sometime within the next 5 to 10 years that all of the discrimination, job discrimination particularly, because it hardly seems fair to have a woman doing the same job as a man and yet carry a different job grade or job classification and receive less money. In the field of politics, we have a very serious problem because everybody knows the activity that women take in public office and in politics for all candidates. I tell many of the male candidates that a great many of them could conceivably not be elected if it weren't for the substantial number of women that do the letter writing, the telephone calls, and do the work for them.
And sometimes the thinking.
And yet, here we are. When I first went into the Senate, this is my 13th term, there were 3 women. Mm-hmm. Now, after 26 years, there are only 4 of us. And at one point, about 10 or 12 years ago, I was the only woman senator, so that in a quarter of a century, we've only gained 1 woman in the Senate. So here we are, 25 years. It took us 25 years to get 1 woman more in the Massachusetts Senate. And where the House of Representatives is concerned, they've done a little bit better because 26 years ago there were 4 women there, and this year they were 16. Mm-hmm. So that in terms of public office, more women are running for public office. We have a tendency to campaign just a little bit differently than men do.
We haven't been at it long enough yet to know
Probably
the ins and
not.
outs. One final question on education. You've been involved with education most all of your life. What do you see as the changes in education for women right now? Do you see them striving out for more? Is education better for women now?
I think that women, married women and women in business have greater opportunity now in education. There are a great many programs geared to the business women and to the married women. And with the institution of the special programs both at Southeastern Massachusetts University and Bristol Community College in our area, we have those 2 institutions of higher learning that have done a tremendous job in educating our women.
And is there a place where people can go to get funds now? Is there money available for women to go to school?
Yes, there are a great many programs under our financial aid programs, both administered on a state level and on a local level, both federal funding and state. It is not discriminatory. Males or females may apply for the funding, but women do have special advantages in some of the programs.
That's good. Thank you very much for spending your afternoon with us. I appreciate it. And we'll be right back with the next interview.